Hello, in this video we're going to look at how to implement JWT authentication within Laravel. And for that we're going to use JWT auth library from Timon. And here I have created a fresh Laravel installation project, I mean, and I have opened it in my editor. And the first step is we're going to require this library, but as I have created a Laravel project which is Laravel 6.15 I guess, so I need to install the compatible version with this installation, so compatible version of JWT auth with this version. So if we go on the releases of JWT auth, we can see that they have a 1.0.0-rc.5 which is compatible with Laravel 6. So we're going to install this release of JWT auth. Okay, so let's see, composer require Timon JWT auth 1.0.0-rc.5. It may take a couple of minutes to install. In the meanwhile, we can see what next we have to do to configure this library. So next is we need to add service provider. This is the step we need to do if we have Laravel 5.4 or below. If we are using Laravel 5.4 or below. As I have installed Laravel 6.15, I will not apply do this step. But if you're using Laravel 5.4 or below, you need to add this class in config folder app.php file in the provided array. So next, we need to publish the configuration of JWT, and for that we need to run this command. I'm going to copy it, and in my terminal it's still downloading the library, so we have to wait for it to complete. Okay, it is finished. Now we can paste the command we copied earlier to generate the configuration file for JWT auth. So I'm going to run this command, and it will create a config file in config folder with the name of jwt.php, and in the project directory we can see that we have jwt.php file in here. So now next what we need to do is we need to generate secret key that will be used in creating or generating tokens, authentication tokens for our users. So we need to run this command, and it will store the secret key in the .env file. So let's open our terminal and paste this command. And here we go. If we look at our .env file, down below we can see that we have JWT secret, and here's the key that it generated. Now this key will be used to create our tokens. So now we need to do, first we need to we can configure our model to use JSON web token, and for that we need to convert this model into JWT subject. To do that, we need to implement JWT subject contract, and we need to add these two methods, implement these two methods in our user model. So down below in the file we can write public function get file, and how this token will be identified, how user will be identified by the token, and so we we will use the user the model key, the primary key of the model, to be used as an identifier for JWT token. So this get key. So by default, this is the ID of the user table. So next we need to implement another function, get JWT custom claims, and we can just return an empty array. So now that is set, now we have to set our authentication configuration to use this JWT library. So for for our API we are using JWT driver, and here we can use we can set our default code to API, so that we can, when we run our API test to check the authentication and registration of user, by default it use the API guard. So everything is good here. Next, when you install a fresh Laravel, create a fresh Laravel project, it comes with the default user table and a few more tables like password reset and fail jobs, but our concern is the users table. So in this table we have a name, email verification at timestamp, and a password. So we can register a user by providing its name, email, and password. So for that we need to create API routes and controller. So first we will create a controller for authentication. So PHP artisan make controller auth controller. Okay, so controller is created. In the app HTTP controllers, we can delete this pre-generated controllers, because we are using our own controller for authentication. So in this controller, first we need to need a function that will be used to register user. So public function register request, and what data we need to register a user is, we need a name, email, and password. So we can say request dot validate name, required email, required, and it should be an email, password required minimum 6 character longs. So we have our validations. Now when user sends a post request, how we can fetch the data from the request, we can use data is equal to request only. I mean, we are getting only the data we need from the request, and in an array we can pass the keys or the key names. So we need name, email, and password. Next we can create a user from user model, and I need to pull that in, and we can pass data into the user model. Now we can save our user with the same method and return a response that we have successfully registered our user. So message user registered. Okay, but first there's a little thing we have to make sure, is that when we store our password in the database, we first need to hash it. So for that, in our users model, we need to implement a way that it will automatically hash the password we save in the database. So public function set password attribute and value. This attributes password is equal to hash make value. Now before we call the save method, this method will be run and this method will be called, and the value we provided for the password attribute will be saved in the password as a hashed. So when we save this, it will be stored as a hashed string. So we are good here. Okay, let's test this. Before that, before we can test the API, we need to create an API route. So in our API route file, in our routes API file, we can delete this and route post user register, and we're going to use auth controller register method, and done. Now we can test this API and see if it works. So here in the register we have our email, our password, and our name. So let's send this request. Okay, we are okay. We have to do one more thing. We have to, in our env file, we have to configure the database credentials. So database name is Laravel, and root database username will be homestead, and password will be secret. So let's save it and run the request again. Okay, so one more step we have to do is php artisan migrate fresh. Okay, now we can send this request successfully, and we have. Okay, so this user is registered successfully, and now we can create a login API and a method in the controller so that we can authenticate our user. So public function login request, and here we need only email and required password required. Okay, so credentials is equal to request only email password, and we can use we can get token from auth attempt credentials. So if our email and password is correct, this will return a token. If it is not correct, it will return null or false. So if we can check this, if not token, then return response JSON message invalid email or password 403. But if the username and password is correct, we can return the JSON token to the in our response. So return response JSON message logged in successfully, I guess, and auth token token is equal to is token. So let's check this also. Before that, we need to register the route login, and we should create one more route to fetch user data if user is authenticated. So user me and auth controller at me, and we can implement this me method in our auth controller so that we can use it. Okay, public me request. Okay, so if our user is authenticated, then it can access this me endpoint, and then this function will be called. So return this user request user. So we're just returning the authenticated user. So we can apply middleware to this endpoint in two ways. First, we can do this middleware and auth API, and the second way is we can add the middleware in the constructor of this controller. So public function construct, and this middleware auth API only me. So me is the name of the function that we have implemented here. So we are saying that call this middleware or use this middleware for this method only. So we can remove this and let's see if it works. So in our Postman, we can log in our user, send the request, and here we logged in successfully and we got the token. Now we can use this token in the me authorization and send request, and here you can see that we can access this me endpoint as an authenticated user. So this is the way we can use JWT auth to implement JWT authentication. So this is so easy. You can, as you can see from the way I have implemented it. So thanks for watching this video. Hope you like it.